Today on the Ever Onward podcast, we have Dr. Rhiana Menen. She's an unbelievable breast cancer surgeon here in the Treasure Valley. She's got an incredible training pedigree, most recently at MD Anderson before coming here, has now just started her private practice. It's going to be exciting to talk to her about what motivates her and all the great work she's doing. And then finally, we'll get to what she's doing internationally. She's a board member of Tiba, and then she started Boda Girls, which is an unbelievable organization in Kenya doing so much good. I know you will enjoy this, Dr. Rhiana Menen. Prior to Rhiana, we will hear from the guys, Mark Cleverly and Holt Haga, who will be talking about our incredible downtown project.
Good morning, everyone. We're here with another Allquist update. I'm Mark Cleverly with Allquist.
Holt Haga, VP of Leasing, Allquist Development.
So we haven't talked about it for a while, and there's been a lot of changes and things going on, and thought we'd talk about 4th and Idaho.
Yeah.
The ICCU tower that's going up downtown right now. It's been a project, obviously, we've been working on it for a while. Steel's going up. We're actually having a topping off ceremony here in May with steel, so exciting stuff coming. So wanted to hit on that, and just to start us, we just got a lease signed with Kiln, their second location in the valley. Amazing group. I know a lot of people know about Kiln out here at Eagle View Landing, but they're taking 30,000 square feet of the building.
Yeah, huge win.
Huge win for us. So really, we're down to 3 floors in a 7-story building. We're down to 60,000 square feet out of 140. And so walk us through kind of what our thought process has been on these last 3 floors over the last few months.
Well, you know, it's a huge win, and I think initially when we developed the project and sort of planned the project, it was office, right? That whole 13-story tower, 140,000 square feet, the top 7 floors, all office, Class A office. And I think we've done that obviously with the top 4 floors. Kiln taking down 30,000 square feet was incredible. They took all of 11 and half of 10.
Yep.
The other half of 10, we've got a handful of letters of intent for traditional office, companies, law firms, financial services, and then the remaining 3 floors. To your point is what's the highest and best use for those 3 floors? And it's either office was kind of what we had planned.
Yep.
But as we look at it, we've sort of pivoted, right?
Yeah.
And I think what we're going to deliver is Class A medical office space. So this is sort of the first announcement that we're making on this project, really, as we roll out our marketing and sort of pivot a little bit. But it's become clear, and the more that we talk with groups in the market and kind of get a pulse on the market for the delivery, medical is just it's underserved in that area, especially. Two main factors. Number one is the product that's there right now. It's old. A lot of it's historic, kind of
it's old
residential homes
that
right?
are converted into commercial spaces. Yeah.
Right. And so if you're an independent medical group looking for space in the downtown market, in the downtown corridor near the St. Luke's expansion, your options are really these tired old homes that you're very limited in what you can do, and it's incredibly expensive.
Yeah.
So it's not just the face value price of, hey, I can buy this new office building and convert it to my medical office, office. It's that cost plus, sometimes double. So it's very, very cost prohibitive to do that. So one of the key drivers is the existing product. The second, of course, is St. Luke's expansion, which is over $1 billion now, set to deliver in 2029. So the last 3 floors that we're going to do are going to be premium medical space, and we're doing a few things to sort of tailor to that. One of the things, obviously, we've got a ton of parking, so access is as good as you can get, which for medical is critical.
Yeah.
We're also rolling out a valet parking program, which looks like it's going to be actually in the garage, in the nested garage that we've got at the project. So a variety of things that just make it just an incredible, medical office play or medical office product. And so I think we're definitely excited about it.
When we first planned 4th and Idaho, you remember this, we had 2 towers one of them was a medical tower and one of them was an office tower. And going through design review with the city and what they wanted, I mean, we switched, basically had to switch and do one tower of just commercial and one tower of residential, which was fine. But we always knew that medical was like a key component for this area, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you're a block away from the largest hospital in the valley, right? I mean, from next to St. Luke's, and for years you go downtown and medical users, they can't find space down there. We fought it with a user when we were a Gardner company. We were working with a clinic that we could not find space for down there, right? I mean, it actually took us a couple of years to figure out where to put them in, because there was just no options.
Yeah, it had to be a separate, standalone ground up development, new construction.
Absolutely. So
project, yeah.
So this, like you said, because of the outreach to us and people saying, hey, what about, like, I'm a medical user, do you guys have space for me down there? We shifted to those last 3 floors. So we'll still have the office up on the top 4. ICCU will take the top 2, and then we'll, Kiln and a couple others. But yeah, medical, and it'll be great. We're excited, right, to get the medical going. We've already got groups that are submitting LOIs on the floors that we have there, and so it's going to be awesome. We're super excited.
Yeah, I think to that point, if you're an independent medical group, for example, looking for anywhere from 2,500 to even 30, 40,000 square feet, this is a trophy project that is adjacent to downtown and St. Luke's that is going to be a great option.
Yep.
Yeah.
Love it. Okay, man.
Okay, brother.
Good job.
Dr. Menen, thank you for coming on. These are always so interesting. We met in the hall coming in here, but sometimes I have people on here that I've just known forever. And then sometimes it's like a first meeting. It was our first meeting today. But I have had literally, it's not an exaggeration, dozens of people say, you've got to talk to her. You've got to hear her story. So I'm really excited. I feel like I know you already just because of so many friends or people that we've had on have brought your name up. So thank you for coming on today.
Thank you for having me. I was going through your list of podcasts and listening to so many amazing guests that you've had on, and I am honored to be on this list.
We're honored to have you here. It's fun for me to have people in healthcare, because then I immediately want to talk a little bit about some of the healthcare stuff. But with your background, this is going to be a fascinating trip. But are you okay just maybe telling a little bit about your story?
Sure.
And kind of just a little bit about you, your bio, for people to get to know you a little bit better before we get started.
So I grew up in Southern California, and my father is an immigrant from India. And so he told us our whole lives, the way you guys live is not the way the rest of the world lives. And so I kind of always had this perspective about how lucky we were to live in this country where we had so many opportunities. And so I have gravitated towards healthcare my whole life. And one of the things that really brought me into healthcare was the idea that I could use skills that are portable and work internationally. And I traveled to India to meet my family when I was young. Maybe my first time was very young. And then I spent a prolonged amount of time kind of as an 11 or 12-year-old, where you're just about to be this American teenager and seeing how the world is not like, Orange County, California, or, Boise, Idaho it's transformational at a young age. And so I kind of always knew I wanted to be in medicine. I always knew I wanted to be a surgeon. And so as I went through medical school, I went to medical school.
What was your inspiration for that?
I just knew
was
that.
there family members or anyone that
I'm the
did?
first one.
Okay.
But I like to fix a problem.
Okay.
And you can probably relate to this as an ER doctor, but surgery in particular is you have a problem and you fix it. And I'm pretty cool under pressure. And so I really liked being the one who, things are falling apart and you kind of pick up pieces and stay calm and are a voice of reason in the room. And so I kind of naturally gravitated, that's the word, towards kind of those more emergency situations.
who was your, who, I want to understand this a little more because it's a pretty daunting thing as, as a young person and then a woman
Yes.
saying, I'm going to go be a surgeon. I mean, I went through this. I mean, it's kind of the guys that take no, I mean, it's a very dominant kind of thing. I mean,
Very much so.
Very much so. So it is interesting for me that you chose it and knew it early and then just plowed through it because there's probably a lot of barriers and hurdles you had to overcome.
Very much so. I was blessed to be in a family that was just, my grandmother was my most ardent supporter. I never once thought there was something I couldn't do.
It's awesome.
And so, why not go for the hardest thing? Why not be the loudest voice? Or why not do anything you could want to do? Because that's what she had always done. And I have this amazing network of really strong women in my family. But that was, I never felt that internal barrier.
Is she still alive?
She just passed away. It's 2 weeks ago. 2 years ago this week. And she was my most important person my whole life. And so I feel her with me all the time.
What made her, because I've got my own kind of like, I had a grandpa that I always talk about. But what made it so special? And what were the qualities of someone like that as a mentor that were so important to you? Because I think as we have those experiences, especially as leaders now, like talking to people, I think sometimes we don't realize the impact you can have on someone. But what were her qualities? What are the things you think back that are her kind of legacy things that inspired you?
Thank you for asking this because, you lose a grandparent and everybody loses a grandparent and it's just supposed to be part of life, but she was so important to me. And so I just love talking about her. She was one of the most quietly strong people and sometimes not so quietly strong, but just a force. Like it was never an excuse that you're too busy or too tired or you just do it. You and she would even say to me, you're the strongest one, so you have to do it all the time. You have to pick up
And you believed her.
I believed her to my core, and I still believe her, right? If you have the ability, if you have the energy, if you have the know-how, that's your job to do it then. You pick up where other people can't, and you don't actually, she was so kind and loving to everyone around her. She was just so accepting, like, faults and all of anyone because she felt like she had the bandwidth to pick up where they left off. And I think she was the most all-encompassing, she was beautiful. She was hilarious. She was, she died at almost 90 and still owned her own business and went to work every day. And she just was one of those people that was, I couldn't imagine.
What was her
life
story?
without her.
Did she, what was her life experience?
So she grew up in Portland, Maine. She was the child of two immigrants, a Syrian immigrant and an Irish immigrant. Her father died when she was very young at 8 he was a train foreman and died in a train accident. And then I think she kind of had to pick up and be the strong person in her family. She had a younger brother who's still alive. And her mother kind of worked as a cleaner in houses and she would say she worked for rich people. So she knew all the beautiful things that she wanted. So I remember as a little girl, I would polish the silver and with her and iron napkins and fold them. And even if you didn't have a lot of money, you had beautiful things around you. And it was important to her. And so just to kind of be put together. And then she wanted to leave Portland, Maine. She became a flight attendant. Wow. In the 50s and met my grandfather actually on a flight from Chicago to California, and the rest was history.
Wow. I think about the world we live in now, and it's so busy. I'm a lot older than you, but like I think back to because I've actually thought about this a lot. I'm like, why was my grandfather so impactful on me, and am I being impactful on my kids and my grandkids? And I do think it's busier now. There's more noise now. And I think about the times that I was with him, it was quiet. Yeah. And I always say this, and I don't know if it makes sense to you, but I remember, I have vivid memories of him talking to me because when he talked to me, I could feel it. It just wasn't like words. And I'm wondering if it was because it was quieter. So I'm trying to be intentional about, like with my grandkids now, creating times, and it may sound artificial a little bit, but I want to get those boys away where we're quiet and I can talk to them and tell them they're wonderful and they hear it and they're not distracted. I don't know. I just worry about, it's busy now. It's just like, I don't know. You feel that way ever?
I feel like that all the time. And I think you're exactly right about that quietness, because when I was with my grandmother, and I was the first grandchild of 13 grandkids, and so I was a lot older than everybody else. So I had this beautiful time of just us. And it didn't matter what we were doing. She was an interior decorator, so I would drive around in her van, and we'd go to the fabric store, and we'd go to the paint store, and we'd go to, and it didn't matter what we were doing. It was just the two of us. And that, you're right, that quiet time, that if when you're with her, you're the only thing that matters.
Yeah.
Even if you're doing 5 other things, you're still the only person that matters. And I think that is the connection that we need, even amongst the noise, to have that human connection.
I think there's a lot to learn from that. Sorry I interrupted you, because so you're the oldest, so she had to be tremendously proud of you, like over the moon.
I know
Because
that,
now you go
yeah.
through this, you're like, I'm going to become a surgeon. And then tell us about your education.
So I did my medical school in San Diego. That wasn't too far from home. I have a little sister who's 14 years younger than me, and I had gone to the East Coast for college and then really wanted to be home and close to her after that. I met my husband, who's from Boise, in San Diego. And so when people say, oh, everyone's from California, and I say, well, you keep marrying us, we wouldn't even know about this place. So he found me in San Diego and brought me back here. I did my residency in San Francisco, and did 2 years of bench cancer research too. So that was, 7 years of surgical training. And then through that whole time, I met another really important mentor when I was in residency, who, Dr. Das, who just passed away last year, but was one of those people that I really tried to model the rest of my career off of. He did international work 3-4 times a year. He's originally from India, so I traveled with him to India. He did clinics in Mexico. He set up girls' schools in Nepal, in India, in South America, as many as you can imagine. Just one of those people who truly believed in the transformation of empowering young girls and women and what that does to a society.
Wow.
And his foundations have continued to persist. He was actually a urologist and one of the most ardent humanitarians that I have ever come in contact with. And so really inspired me to show me how I could do that work and still be a busy practicing surgeon. And then when I finished residency, I did a fellowship at MD Anderson in Houston, Texas for breast oncology. And it was one of those things where I got to kind of the pinnacle of academic cancer medicine, and I was offered a faculty position there, and I went, I don't think I want to do this here. Because in Houston, and I feel very passionately about access to medicine for everyone. I want everyone to be able to have this high quality care. And we know that that's not always possible. And so in Houston, there were 100 amazing breast surgeons. In Idaho, there was just one in the whole state. And she's still here, and she's fantastic, but she can't do it all her own by herself. And so we had decided, we had 2 little boys at that time. We had been through a lot of training. My husband's family was here. We needed the support. So we moved back here. And I thought, I was the second breast surgeon in the whole state. And I thought, I want to be bringing MD Anderson quality care to Idaho, not where there's 100 people who can, go anywhere.
Well, thank heavens a boy from Boise married you, because, when I looked at your, I looked at your resume and I'm like, I can't wait to hear how, because the pathway could have, should have, bench research. You look at your pedigree of training, and you're at MD Anderson. I'm sure it would have been very easy and prestigious to stay there and be at a big referral institute like that. And you're here in Boise, Idaho. How's it been? So you've been here for
almost 9 years.
9 years.
I can't believe how time has really flown, and I'm really proud of the work that I've done here. I think that I did a lot of what I came to do, because when I first got here, there was, like I said, one breast surgeon in one whole hospital system. I was the first one in my whole hospital system that had the catchment area of all of Idaho, plus Eastern Oregon, Eastern Washington, Northern Nevada. We would get Wyoming, we would get Alaska. I mean, really a huge catchment area. And there was no comprehensive breast program. There were no employed plastic surgeons. So when I first got here, I said, well, why aren't we doing immediate reconstruction for women who've had a mastectomy? Why don't they go home with their implants? Or, why aren't we doing a more comprehensive cancer care? And so by the time I left, which was just about 18 months ago, we had the biggest breast program in the whole state, 5 or 6 plastic surgeons, 5 or 6 surgeons. So really had elevated what breast cancer care looked like for the entire state. So really proud of the work we did there, and really shined a light on how important this is, but had a lot of barriers too. So,
well, your reputation, it's been incredible, and the impact you've had you're talked about everywhere. So it's cool to have you on. Talk about, there's so many things I want to get into with you because I'm sitting here listening and thinking of questions, but you go into surgery, then you choose cancer surgery, you go get trained and that. You're kind of picking the very most technical, right? And then also anything associated with cancer and treatment and surgery is just hard. And you get to, I think the best part of medicine, so as you know, I kind of stopped practicing. I loved it. The business is great because I tell people all the time, they're like, why would you leave? And I'm like, well, I reluctantly left because I didn't want to leave. But when you get in business, the professional satisfaction of working with other professionals, people are happy. And I will tell you this, in healthcare, it's hard because a lot of people aren't happy. And I know that doesn't sound, it's just people are tired. They're, with all the changes that have come in documentation and the way people are paid and the way the system works and the clunkiness of it tends to lead to fatigue that has nothing to do with patient care. And unless you're in it, you don't really realize that this isn't about patient care. So this is a long rambling statement to get to a couple questions. For me though, when I think of my memories, it is the patients. And I trained in Arizona and then came here. But the patients in Idaho are wonderful, this area. They're just kind and wonderful. Talk about, and like I'm the Neanderthal ER guy, right? Is a bone broken? Is it bleeding? Whatever. But you have the ability to make this connection with people over a period of time when they're dealing with the scariest thing that you ever hear in your life is you have
hardest
cancer.
Day, right?
Your hardest day. Talk about how wonderful it is to be part of that with patients.
I think you did the perfect intro because we hear so much about burnout. We hear so much about these other factors, and it is hard to be just a doctor now because you have to deal with so many other things. But when you distill it down, when you look at the end of your day or your week or your career or your life, it is those personal connections. It's that quiet moment. And I think you alluded to it earlier. How do we have human connection? It's in these quiet moments. So kind of the best and most gratifying part about my job is to meet people on their first day where they are terrified. They think 100% of the time they think they're going to die. And then even if I know, I look at it and I go, we're going to do great. Or, wow, we got a big journey ahead, but you're still going to do great. And that's what I like about breast cancer in particular is because it's such a hopeful field. I kind of always say the best time to get breast cancer is now. Better time would be in 5 years or 10 years because it changes so quickly. But to be able to sit down and in a very logical way, whether you're an engineer or a farmer, I can explain it to you in a way that I go, this is how I know that we're going to do well. This is how I know we're going to get through this together. And I'm going to get you back to your family, get you back to your career, get you back to your life. It won't ever be totally the same. I don't mean to minimize it, but this is how I can sit with you. I can look you in the eye. I can sit here with your family and just know that we can connect and get you to a place where you leave much more relieved, much happier.
And I think I'm sitting here thinking, because for us, when I was in the ER for all those years, you would have that's where people die, is in the ER. So you'd have very sad things that happen all the time. But you have a regular occurrence where you have people that have been told they have cancer, many times young people, that for the first time are probably like questioning their mortality, which, because usually you go through life and we take for granted much of where we live, what we have. You brought that up with your experience internationally, and then you take for granted your health. I mean, it's just, you can't help. Most of the time you're healthy and it's easy. And all of a sudden someone says you have cancer. You're like, your mind, and that's the first time they're coming to you hopeless, right? Of what's going to happen. And that happens over and over and over again.
And it can be very overwhelming. And so one of the reasons I went into private practice about 18 months ago, and one of the biggest reasons was because that period of waiting was getting really out of control. So it was from biopsy that someone gives you a call and says you have cancer, to see me for the first time, and I'm the first practitioner you see, was 46 days.
Ooh.
Biopsy to surgery was 80 days.
That's tough.
And it was so stressful because the first thing you have to do is spend about 15 minutes de-escalating the frank trauma that you've had for thinking that you're going to die and not only that, you have a cancer that's growing and changing inside you.
You've been Googling on the internet.
And I always say, this is my best piece of advice. When you have cancer, the internet is only for cat videos. That's it. Do not look at anything else, because about 99% of things don't apply to you, but they will scare you. And so our biggest change and my biggest stress was, I just need to get more and more and more and more and more people in. And then you lose that connection because you're so overwhelmed. I was coming in, we were putting in one patient before our template, going over lunch and seeing a patient, staying one day later, and my amazing nurse and I were just drowning. And we couldn't bring our best selves every time, and then every day off, I would just operate all day. And so I wasn't seeing my kids. I was home at 8 o'clock. I had a million charts to do. You just can't go on that way. And I'd say 10 years into my career, but I'm not old enough that I can do that for much longer. And so I made a big change, and it was terrifying. But we routinely, I work with one of your tenants here, Lyra, Total Breast Health, and we get patients in. She calls me and says, there's a cancer coming. And I say, okay, we saved a spot for next week. And so that time of anxiety has been broken down to a week, 10 days, 2 weeks into surgery within 30 days. And that gives me, I can breathe easy.
Talk about the autonomy and control a little bit, because I mean, I'm way older than you. So, you go back to when I started in this thing, and then the evolution, like literally during my time. And listen, there were some wonderful things about the Affordable Care Act, and then there was the bureaucratic layers of stuff that have happened with, you can pick anything in healthcare. You had patient and doctor at some point, but you can pick pharmacy and PBMs. You can pick insurance companies and interbattles. You can pick regulations that, I'm sure some of them made sense, but just piles of regulations and the legal side of things. That's the part that gets just fatiguing. I think no matter you pick the specialty across medicine, and people are just like, it doesn't feel like it used to anymore. And so I'm really happy that you were able to say, I want to take control, because at some point, you think of the training and time and effort that it takes you to get to there. And then I think one of the things you said that really hit home with me is you're human.
We're just people.
You have your kids, and you have your life, and you have your family, and you have so much energy and love and compassion, and then you take care of people where you need all that. And then there's this thing, which is the administrative side of life that you have to do. And at some point, it's math.
You have no more hours.
There's no more hours. Because you can limit your sleep as much as you can. And
we tried that for years.
Naively, I used to say sleep's overrated. I said that till I started having all my heart problems. I'm like, I was wrong. Don't listen to me anymore. But you, at some point, so I'm glad. So it's settling out really well for you.
It is. It's this. I get to every basketball game. I get to every concert. I'm home for dinner most nights. And I'm doing the kind of care that I'm so proud of. And I know, and I have my cute little clinic. It has flowers and chandeliers and art, and you call and someone answers, a real person answers, and you can get to us. And
Hey, well, while we're doing this, because there's a lot of people on YouTube, how can people reach you while
yeah, I'm Mountain State Breast and General Surgery. Google my name, and you can get in
we're
to
going
see
to pull
me.
it up? Mountain State's
Breast and General Surgery.
Breast and General Surgery.
And
It's been a year and a half.
Been a year and a half. I have a wonderful partner, Dr. Carrie Newton, who's came from Salzer, and we just have, you can tell by our website, we are interested in who you are. We talk a lot about lifestyle. We talk about cancer
I
prevention.
love that tagline right from the beginning. Back up a little bit, Maddie. Our priority is personalized whole person care.
Yeah. So when you walk in and we do general surgery and we do a lot of lifestyle counseling, and maybe you have a hernia and maybe you're not ready for repair right now because we have to work on a few things, but we'll work with you and get you there. And so these are the things that are so gratifying as a doctor. I get all the time I want with you. I can say, you have this tumor. We're going to talk just about this. We're going to talk about the person who's, around this tumor as well, and talk about how my favorite analogy is when you're talking about a tumor, it's like saying, or cancer, it's like saying you have a pet. It could be a pet goldfish. It could be a pet dragon. That's how different they are. Obviously, if you have a dragon, we're not going to use goldfish medicine, but we will slay your dragon.
Yeah.
If you have a goldfish, don't even worry. We don't have to do any of that dragon stuff. And so just breaking down in a very expert way gives people this confidence that it's not just, nobody knows what to do. This is unknowable. No, I can get you through this.
That's awesome. I want to shift to your international work, but before we do, I think it would be, I think for people listening, because there are stories where people say, "I'm so glad I listened to your podcast because." What is the advice you would give to families listening to this podcast out there with breast cancer detection, early diagnosis? What are some things that everyone should know?
So everyone should know that mammograms are safe, and they are the way that we catch breast cancer early. So unfortunately in Idaho, we're kind of 50th in screening. And
50th?
50th.
Holy.
Dead last.
Why do I always have to be 50th in everything?
And that means that 1 in 3 new breast cancer diagnosis is advanced stage. And so we can catch this early. And I know there's so much fear around cancer, but what I promise is I don't care what we find. I have a good plan for it. So, and the earlier we catch it, the better we have a chance to catch it.
We're really
and get you through
50th.
it. 50th, darn it. And Dr. White of Lyra and Representative Brooke Green and myself just were able to help pass a bill that the governor signed just 2 weeks ago that pays for coverage for all high-risk breast cancer screening. And so whereas women were paying like $4,000 out of pocket, that this went to your deductible, but it wasn't just a covered service. Now, if you're considered high risk for breast cancer, if you have high density breasts, we have a lot of other great options for you.
Let me ask you some questions on that. Like what you're high risk, you have high density, you know that. What should a mammogram cost? What's the true cost of a mammogram?
Oh, well, so it's most
not what people are charged
covers, right? Most coverage, if you have insurance, even if you have Medicaid, if you have anything, if you show up for a screener, it shouldn't cost you anything. It's probably about $200 out of pocket if you have nothing. But high-risk screening can be pretty darn expensive. It can be $500 to $3,000 for an MRI, and those are out of pocket. It can be for a diagnostic mammogram, $800. But we're working with more affordable and different options in the community. Dr. White has opened imaging centers that make it really accessible, and because she has these new other modalities, everyone else has followed suit. So all the big hospitals have it now too, because she was the
so
first
it's easier
one to get
than
it.
it's ever been.
Easier. There's more options. There's more affordability, and it's now covered.
Okay.
So there's really, what I would say to people is, don't be afraid. Get out there. Mammograms are very safe, and they are the way that we are detecting breast cancer. And that, I think, segues nicely to this international work that I'm doing, because the programs I've set up in Idaho, I'm trying to do the same thing in Kenya.
All right, let's go there now, because I think you're super appreciated, famous here for the work you've done, traditional healthcare. You've really, you've really revolutionized breast care in Idaho in a short period of time. And it's an honor to have you on and talk about that. Now let's talk about your international work. So you were inspired by this mentor of yours.
Very much so, Dr. Doss.
So Dr. Doss, and you're like, oh, this is possible. But it's hard because, listen, I think a lot of times you get in life and you've got so much going on. I really want to understand how you're like, hey, not only am I going to do this, I've got a family, I've got my career, I've got my practice, but you prioritized this international care. That's not easy.
It's not, and I think when you're young, so I did, 4 years of college, 4 years of medical school, 7 years of residency, and a 1-year fellowship. So you're at the end of this and you're like, I got to get a job.
Right.
So as I was moving to Idaho in 2016, one of my mentors reached out who had been going to this area in Kenya through the Tiba Foundation for a long time. And he said, do you want to come with me? I said, yes, this is perfect. I have 3 months off for the first time in my life. This is perfect. I'll go with you to Kenya. And the Tiba Foundation is a U.S. fundraising arm for some of these projects in Kenya that partners, and this is what's really unique, is it partners with the Kenyan organizations. And so it's never just us flying in and telling them what to do. It's, hey, what do you need? And here I am. And so in 2016, I did a week of operating and just kind of whatever walks in. You do anything, you get really creative. And so I always laugh when I'm here and I say, oh, I need this and I need this and I need this. And I go there and I'm like, whatever you got, I'll take it. We'll make it work. And so I really got the bug because talk about, it's like the antidote to there's no EMR. You're not calling an insurance company. You're not waiting in line. You are in a room with a person.
Wow.
And
Takes it back to the basics, right?
It's so gratifying. And so I did that once and I got the bug. And every year since 2016, I have gone to Kenya for about a year with the Tiba Foundation. I then joined their board. And then last year I became their vice president. So I'm all in. And that kind of, it's like cleaning your filter every year. It reminds me of the joy of medicine. And, our society puts a big investment into making a surgeon. You saw all those years, I got grants to go to school. I got loans to get into medical school. Medicare pays for residency. So and then of course my family and people around me, my husband, my kids, everybody has put a lot of time into allowing me to become a very specialized surgeon. And I have this portable skill and it's wonderful. So, having a father that grew up in India, I feel strongly that I have skills that need to be shared. And so I go to Kenya, and for an area of about 5 million people, there are 0 of the specialists for me. And so I love being able to show up and say, tell me what you need. The other best part about doing that and partnering with the same hospital all the time is I know where those patients went. So when I leave them with my family medicine colleagues and the nurses there. And so they get
there's a nice handoff.
They're there all the time. They WhatsApp me all year long and say, oh, I got this scan. Is this good for your next trip? Is this good? Here, what do you think about this follow-up? So it's kind of the opposite of just flying in and doing something. It's really a partnership that is long-term. And then I have to mention in 2019, we went and a friend of mine donated a bunch of Days for Girls sustainable menstrual hygiene kits. And I know you had the founder of SALT on.
Yeah.
And so about this period poverty and how really across the world, girls don't stay in school because they don't have access to menstrual hygiene.
Yeah.
And so within the Treasure Valley, we have this really strong relationship with this company called Days for Girls as a nonprofit. And there are hundreds of women just in the Treasure Valley who sew these menstrual hygiene kits that are sustainable, reusable, lasts about 5 years. So my friend donated 200 of these kits, which is a huge donation, about $15 a piece. So she really gave me a big leg up. And I took these 2 young women with me, a junior in high school and a senior at Boise, at BSU, and they went and taught how to do these. And it's paired with sustainable menstrual hygiene kit, and paired with just basic biology. This is a uterus, this is an ovary, this is how a baby's made. And it was so powerful. And then these girls, within 4 days, all 200 were gone. They were busing them to the hospital. And then at the end of one of these days, 2 girls get on the back of a motorcycle taxi, call them Bodas, and drove off. And the principal was standing right there, and she said, "Oh my gosh, this is so dangerous. You know, these girls are so vulnerable. They're taken to a field. They never may get home.
Wow.
They're really vulnerable." And so that really sparked something. And we became the co-founders of something called Boda Girls, which are women-run motorcycle taxi service. They drive pink motorcycles. They go to the schools. They teach menstrual hygiene. They take girls to and from school. So it's women driving girls.
Wow.
They bring women to the hospital. They do about 100 deliveries a month in the hospital. Whereas before they were, on the road, or really high maternal fetal death rates in this area. These babies are getting, early childhood care. They're getting vaccinated. They do kitchen gardens, so they send them home with nutrition.
Oh my goodness.
It's the biggest wraparound.
Is there a way to look this up?
Please, it's called bodagirls.org.
BodaGirls.org.
BODA, bodagirls.org. And so not only are these women, they
there it
were
is.
subsistence farmers. We know about these women. We started with 12, and actually one of our huge funders has been Red Aspen, who you had
that's
on.
cool.
And they give us significant money and help us buy these pink motorcycles. Red Aspen donated money for portable ultrasounds. So they send the ultrasound technologists into the villages, and then they know if they have a high-risk pregnancy. They know if they have twins. They know when they're going to deliver and say, okay, when you're ready, you call this Boda Girl and you'll get delivered at the hospital. You have access to a C-section. So
This is
it's
like
incredible.
Incredible.
It's incredible. And so now Boda Girls, this is my 5-year dream, was not only do we have these women, okay, so they were subsistence farmers making $1 a day. It's truly a dollar a day, and they're raising children, and their children are hungry. These Boda Girls now make $10 a day. So it's not just driving. They get this wraparound. They have to do 10 certificates. They do self-defense, self-esteem, mentorship. They learn about computer literacy so they can market themselves. They have app-based entrepreneurship. They do the Days for Girls curriculum. They do gender-based violence. And now what we're trying to add on is a breast cancer component. So that's currently what we're working on this year and what we're fundraising for. For an area of 5 million people, there are 0 mammograms. 0. And so we're working on fundraising for a mobile mammogram unit. And then we're teaching the Boda Girls how to, because there's a lot of fear and there's a lot of stigma. And I will say that a pretty perfect overlap to the work I've done in Idaho has been in Kenya. And it's not even because of resources. It's around trust. It's around fear of cancer. It's around, awareness around screening. I'm basically doing the same work that I did here, there. And it makes it so, I'm always so careful not to come in and go, well, I'm a U.S. doctor and I'm telling you this. I go, these are the problems I had in my own community. And I'd love to teach you and help to shape these programs because I just did this.
I'm just, listen, I'm kind of blown away because I'm sitting here thinking, like, the impact of transportation in a safe way with someone that you trust in a community where that doesn't exist, how impactful and how it started so authentically and the impact it's making. Wow.
It's incredible. And we started with 12. And so just those 12 first women had 43 kids between them. So they went from being in abject poverty. They weren't able to go to school. They didn't have shoes to go to school. They didn't have books. They didn't have health care. They didn't have enough to eat. All 43 of those children, just in the first year, and that was in 2022, are now middle class overnight. All of those women are mentors in their community. They are heroes in their community. And we're up to 40 Boda Girls. And now we are launching in a separate site. And so we think this is a model that can really be replicated all over the world.
This is big stuff. How do people donate that may be listening to this? So go to your website, obviously. So
so bodagirls.org is it. And what I can say is we know. So the Tiba Foundation has one employee, our executive director. Wow. So and our board covers her entire salary. So every dollar you donate goes directly to these programs. And so I can say, and when I have, I'm always hitting up my friends, right? And I say, you're not sending your money to Africa, quote unquote. I know where all these dollars are going, and I can tell you, and the way Salt said it was, $100 here doesn't go very far.
Yeah.
$100 there
goes a long
long way.
How much, just to put it in perspective, like one Boda girl, what does that cost a year?
About $5,000 for
Wow.
the motorcycle, for her training, for everything that goes into
we're
being.
donating. We're like,
Thank you. Yes.
okay, this is
Yes.
incredible.
It's and the impact. So not only does that, and then here's the really exciting part. So we have all this data, and we're working with banks because within 18 months, every single one of our 40 Boda girls have purchased their own Bodas back. And that's based on they offer free rides to the hospital, and we set aside $1 for each one of those rides. And so part of that $5,000 subsidizes those rides. And so at the end of that 18 months, she owns her own motorcycle. And that is incredibly powerful because most men don't. And the men in the area are leasing for about $3 a day. And if they don't pay back that lease, they lose it. And so it's a precarious place for a man to be, but it's a really precarious place for a woman to be.
Yeah.
Because if she has a sick kid, she can't go riding. If the peak times that most people are needing to get to work are when she's got to get her kids to school, when she has to go get water, when she has to take care of all of the responsibilities she has as a woman. So she's already behind the 8 ball, and then it's going to be really hard for her to pay back that loan. And they're kind of predatory loans. So they end up paying about 3 times more for a motorcycle. So after 18 months for her to own her own bike is its own source of income forever.
Did your grandma know about all this stuff?
She did, right? This was just taken off, and she was so proud. And she was so proud of this. And every time I would see a Boda girl, I could just see the spirit of Arlene in them because she's just tenacious as these women are. They're heroes.
I'm just sitting here thinking about what you're saying, but I'm sure you've heard the Raya Trent speak. And it's been years ago since I heard her first time in person speak, but I remember her talking about hunger. And I was in the audience, and she said, "You probably have a definition of hunger, but you don't understand true hunger." And it was so impactful on me because she talked about these women in these situations that they're in and with children, and the hunger to provide and the hunger to improve the life, their own life, and the lives of their children and their future and their posterity. And she's like, that is true hunger. And as you're talking about this, I'm looking at some of these pictures thinking how impactful this is. And it's super inspiring. How do you, I got to ask, how do you do it all?
That's a great question. And going into my private practice has given me so much bandwidth that these are things that fill me up. I just feel so motivated. It like gets you going. The only way to do it is to do it. And then you just keep going after that. And the amount of gratitude, like I said, if we stopped at those 12 women, that would have been enough for me, right? It was so impactful. Those 12 women are incredible, and I see them every year, and they are heroes. And if you look on our social media on Boda Girls, you see them, you see their big smiles. They went from kind of meek, and we had the data on them. Most of them had experienced serious trauma. Almost all of them were single women. All of them had children. And when you talk about that hunger, the amount of grit and resilience that is in these women as an untapped possibility that they're using all their energy just to survive. And then you see what these small interventions do. How do you stop? You can't, you just keep going, and then you see the successes and you just keep going. And so that presence that we talked about, I love being home with my boys. They're actually coming with me to Kenya this year.
Oh, they are.
I'm
How
so
old are your
excited.
boys?
They're 13 and 14.
Oh,
They're
wow.
going to be washing all those motorcycles. They're going to be going into the fields. They're going to be reading to children. They're going to be, I hope, having that transformational experience that I had as a preteen and teenager, and just seeing that, our lives are we're so fortunate. And it's easy to kind of think of abstractly people in Africa, but when you see that these are your friends. They're your colleagues.
Yeah.
They're your
It's your community.
they're your community. They're people just like you.
Yeah.
There's no better lesson than that, to see and connect with a person in front of you. It's very hard to other people. And I think you know that mostly from the ER. Like, it's very hard to hate people when you see them up close and you're in their most intimate times and they're most scared or they're most joyous or whatever it is. They're such universal human emotions.
Yeah, and you think about, I don't know, you just think about the world we're in, and there's so many things that divide and tear people apart, and it's so, and then I know it's going to sound really weird, but like yesterday, I was going downtown to speak at the BOMA thing, and I stopped right by our buildings, the Pioneer Crossing, right where you come off the freeway, where the Pivot Health is, and the Hilton Garden Inn. That's our project. So I was looking at our project, looking at our landscaping, and then I looked over, and there was a homeless guy there. And for whatever reason, I sat for a long time because there was a lot of traffic at that light, just looking at him. And I thought, he was young, and I thought, that kid, that's someone's son. And I got really kind of super emotional, and I thought, that's someone's kid right there. And I thought, oh, I'm late to this thing, but I don't know, there's just, I think we forget. It's easy to put barriers up where we look at people and we don't realize that that's someone's kid, and he's got a story, and somehow he's there, and you know.
And what happened?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can't help everyone, but my gosh, we can get involved in good stuff and try to give back. I think my takeaway is for $5,000. I think of all the other things we do with money, like $5,000, the impact that would make on a person
it's exponential.
It's generational to them and to everyone around. So, oh my goodness, I didn't expect this to be this cool. I didn't. So donate. So the challenge out there for people. We have some regular listeners. I know they're business guys, but bodagirls.org, and it's easy there to donate. And for $5,000, you can
impact not just one person, literally thousands of people in this one donation.
Well, this has been amazing. What's I don't even know how to end this. Like, what's next? Your practice is going well. People can reach you there if they need anything.
Yes, and that's been transformational. I think figuring out, once you leave this big medicine machine, how to be creative, how to be innovative, how to be efficient. And that's how you do efficient care. That's how you get people one-on-one in front of you that aren't lost in this morass of bureaucracy. And so we're just trying to connect our doctors to our patients, just us. It's just us.
This has been awesome. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
This is great, and I want to extend our support. Anything we can do to help you, we're all in. This is changing. This is great. Appreciate all you do for the community and for the world at large. Because I was thinking about your grandma, man. She's got to be so dang proud of you. That's cool. Well, thanks for coming on.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, everybody.